Hello, and thank you for stopping by. I'm First Warn 5 Meteorologist Mike Nicco. New data coming in, showing a little bit of a shift in our track to the north, kind of taking some snow away further south, putting a little bit more up to the north. So that's what we've got to talk about, and going to let you know what to expect out of the storm from this latest data. So let's just jump right in and show you what is going on with this data. All right. So you don't want to work with me. So let's try this again. We're going to try this a different way. All right, here we go. First, we'll start off with taking a look at what is new. So it's still Monday, but now we've pushed up the timeline for the first one. We had it from noon to 8, but some data is now saying that the snow is going to pick up in intensity around 10 o'clock in the morning, and that, along with the highest amount shifting to the north, is what is the newest part of this forecast. So let's kind of run through what is going to happen. We've got a dry snow, which is good, which means it's going to be easily movable, whether it's you trying to move it off the driveway or our street crews trying to move it off the roads. Even a light breeze, because this is a fluffy snow, is going to push this snow around. Driving behind a car, it could kick up some snow and temporarily blind you. That's how light this snow is going to be. Second thing, it falls across several hours. So the intensity of this snow, while we've narrowed it down, is still going to be moderate at best, which means it's going to take a little bit to accumulate as it falls. Okay, so that is some good news. That means we can possibly treat the roads one or twice before the snow really starts to accumulate a lot. Now, I was pulling into the parking lot here at our studios off Shawnee Mission Parkway. Parking lot, streets, side streets already treated with that salty brine liquid solution. So as we talked about yesterday, we figured the crews are going to be out a lot today trying to get that down across our thousands of miles of interstates, highways, streets, and roads. The commute that I'm thinking is going to be most affected is going to be the afternoon school commute and the evening work commute. And our final thing I want to tell you is the streets could freeze Monday night into Tuesday, leaving ice on the road. I did find some black ice this morning in some parking lots. So all that rain that we had yesterday didn't completely dry with those winds that came in. Thankfully, by the time I got there, it wasn't an ice rink anymore. It had melted, but there was definitely some black ice this morning, and there'll be more Tuesday morning with this widespread snow event. All right, so here's a look at your snow chances. We've got a light snow that is going to fall from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Okay, so you're asking me, Mike, why do you have the first warn to 8 p.m.? Because even once the snow stops, the effects of that snow are going to linger for the next couple of hours while our crews try to maintain the streets and clean them up once again. Now, from 10 o'clock in the morning to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we expect that light snow to become moderate, and that's when we expect the greatest accumulation to begin. Let me time it out for you. So here we are from 5 to 9 in the morning. That's the morning commute, light snow. The air is going to be really dry at the beginning, which means some of the snow is going to sublimate before it reaches the ground, but it will moisten the atmosphere as it does. A dusting to a ½ inch possible, especially from Kansas City westward, because the storm is coming in from the west to the east and spreading east after 9 o'clock. It'll take over all of our neighborhoods, the entire viewing area, by 9 o'clock. But if we have any amounts up to 9 o'clock, it'll be from mainly Kansas City and westward. All right, so here we are from 10 to 4. All right, actually a 6-hour window. 10 to 4, that's when we're going to have our moderate snow. That's when we're going to have our greatest accumulation of more than likely 2 to 3 inches that is going to fall. Now, from 5 to 7, it'll turn back over to light snow. An additional accumulation in a 2-hour window, ½ inch to 1 inch is aggressive, but it's still possible, especially east of Kansas City, because that's where the snow obviously is going to hang around the longest because it's moving off to the east from the west. Okay, so with that timeline in mind, let's take a look at the winter storm impact scale. Everybody's going to be a 1 to begin with, and what does that mean? That means everybody's going to receive at least an inch or a dusting to 2 inches, wet roads possible, slick spots possible. But let me show you where the 2 is now. I've adjusted it north. Remember yesterday I talked about, I gave it a pretty wide berth. I had it from Highway 50 into Harrisonville, over to Olathe, down to Ottawa, and up to Highway 36, which is Atchison, St. Joe, Cameron, and Chillicothe. Well, it looks like the storm is going to jog a little bit farther to the north, and there's going to be a sharp cutoff between an inch and no snow. I mean, there's places like Garnett, Lacine, Butler, Clinton. The farther south you are, the more likely you're getting into that dusting. But as you head north towards Ottawa, Olathe, Odessa, and Marshall, that's where you're getting up to the 2 inches. Now, where the darker purple is northward, that's where we're getting into 2 to 3 to even 4-inch snows possible. In the area where I think I will show you the snow totals coming up. Let me show you the impacts on what a 2 means for this. And it means we're going to have light to moderate snow. Okay, snow possible 2 to 4 inches. So road conditions, because you can't predict exactly how well they're going to be treated, but you know the most traveled roads are going to be treated the best, and they'll likely be wet. Now you start to get off into the side roads, maybe a road like Shawnee Mission Parkway. Treated, probably better than your neighborhoods, but still slushy, possibly wet to slushy. But then you get into your neighborhood roads, the ones that are least likely to get treated. That's where we're going to really find some snowy spots, and that's where the hazards will ramp up. Now, again, this will refreeze. We know that the brine solution they put down works down to about 15 degrees. Okay, there are other solutions that will work lower than that, but I think they're more expensive and not widely used. So we will drop down to around 15 degrees Monday night into Tuesday morning. That's why anything that's wet and slushy is going to turn to ice. All right, so here's a look at the potential snowfall. And let's start. Now I'll put some pause points in here. And you can see right there as we go up through 5, 6, 7 o'clock, we're looking at a little bit around I-35, even into northern Missouri. So yeah, a little bit farther east than what I thought. So up to I-35, okay? Then we go through the rest of it and get up to about 9 o'clock, and you can see we're starting to see that increase in the intensity. Some areas trying to get already an inch. Now from 9 o'clock, here we go all the way through to 1 o'clock. We're up to 2 inches in some areas. So you can see just how much heavier that snow is going to be once that moderate snow rolls in. And then here we run up to 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock, and we're looking at, the greatest snow possibly around the river up to Highway 36. I think that what we're looking at, and honestly, is going to be an area probably right around here. Maybe that's a little bit far north, but around the river up to Highway 36. That's the area where we could see the isolated neighborhoods receiving possibly 4 inches of snow. That's going to be a very, very narrow band. And with it being such a narrow band, even our high resolution models have a little bit of a hard time delineating exactly where that is going to land. So anywhere, I think I drew a little bit too far north, but let's go right about, yeah. So that's the area that we're looking at for the potential 4 inches of snow. So that is what we're looking at right now. I wanted to use this hit just to talk about what was going to happen with this particular snowstorm. So I'm going to look over here. I see Emily Trout says, what time will the road freezing start? You want to look for the temperature, Emily, on your thermometer, which will be a little bit warmer than, which will be a little bit colder, than the ground. So if you have a thermometer outside, you have a thermometer on your car, it's going to be a little bit warmer than the actual ground temperature. But when that thermometer on your car starts to dip down around 20 and below, that's when you know bridges and overpasses are likely to start becoming ice. The ground will probably take a couple of hours after temperatures start to get down around 20 to 15. So bridges and overpasses, as soon as we get to that 20, and especially that 15, they'll start to freeze. Roads will take an hour or two longer. So the later you are in the evening, the more likely you're going to run into some of that ice potential that's going to develop. Okay, so thank you for that question, Emily. We sure appreciate that. Let me go back a little bit and kind of go through this. In case you just joined us, I'm just going to repeat a couple of things. New information, okay? We are seeing the timing of this around 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. That's when the first warn is. That's when we're going to have the greatest impacts, the first warn weather day. And as we just talked about, the highest amounts are shifting to the north, especially around the river to Highway 36. What I want to show you here is some of the things that are kind of new. It didn't necessarily, we knew that it was a dry snow, but now that the models are on it, if you know snow ratios, most snow ratios are 10 to 1. Okay, 1 inch of water will create 10 inches of snow. Well, this is going to be a much higher ratio snow. This is going to be up around 15, 16, 17. So 1 inch of rain in that scenario would create 15 to 17 inches of snow. Well, we're going to have about 1/1500ths to 2/10ths of an inch of rain. And so that's going to translate into that 2 to 4 inch. Plus, it's going to be a snow, because it is dry and fluffy and easily movable. It may be a little bit hard to measure. You know, if it's going to blow around, you may have a little drift here, you may have an open spot here to begin with, but I think eventually all of us are going to see a nice blanket of white for the most part, especially those areas that get about 4 inches. Now, with it falling over several hours, as we talked about, we've got a good chance that we're going to continue to see these roads being taken care of. One of the things you want to, we talk about with the roads, the more you drive on them, the warmer they stay. When your tire is compressed and expanded and compressed and expanded as it rotates, that creates heat. And that heat is transferred down to the roads. So that's an area that we're dealing, you know, that's something that's going to help keep the roads up. All right, so I'm looking over here because I want to answer all these questions, and there's a bunch starting to come in right now. They all came in at once. When does, start today or tomorrow, when does, I'm not sure what that says. Is Leavenworth included in the 4 inches? Penelope, you really want 4 inches, don't you? You are close, all right? You are on that line that's around 3 to 4 inches. So it could be 3 inches in Lansing. It could be 4 inches in Leavenworth. It could be down to 3 inches in Atchison. It could be 4 inches in Atchison. You're right on that line where it's possible that, yes, you could be up on the higher level of about 3 to 4 inches. So Emily's worried about getting home from Leawood to Gardner at 6. Well, I'll tell you, from Leawood to Gardner, Emily, I assume, Leawood, you're going to take maybe 435, maybe 119 College Boulevard. I'm not sure. My point is, you're going to take a heavily traveled road, Emily, one that's likely to stay warm through 6 o'clock, one that's maybe slushy, no doubt, but more likely is probably going to be wet with some areas of sludge. And plus, once you over to Gardner, once you get off those main roads, yeah, there's possibly you could find a little bit of snowpack, but this is nothing we can't handle. It's nothing that we haven't dealt with before, a light, dry snow like this that accumulates to 2 to 3 inches around the metro. You just got to slow down, take your time. If you have those paddle shifters, use those to slow you down. If you have an automatic that will let you change gears manually, use one of those. Try to not use your brakes, at least not hard, so they don't, the analog brake doesn't kick in. So there's many different ways that we can get around. Does the circle dip down into the North KC area? Daniel wants to know if North KC is going to get 4 inches of snow. It's close. It's close. The most I've seen for North KC has been about 3.5. 3.5. You go a ½ inch one way, you're up to 4. You go a ½ inch the other way, you're down to 3. So I'm not saying you can't get to 4 inches, but I'm saying 3 is looking like a more probable number for North KC. Flying into KC tomorrow around 4 p.m. Should I expect flight delays with this? Carrie Dunn. Hi, Carrie. I can't speak for the airport, but I can tell you what my experience has been watching the airport the last several years and seeing how well they clean the runways, and the tarmac. I would expect some delays. I would prepare for delays, and I would be happy if there are no delays. I know some of you know my son's been trying to get back from Chicago since yesterday. So he finally got back. So they actually canceled flights, but they also had 6 to 7 inches of snow. I don't think that's going to happen here. I think there'll be some delays, yeah, because they got to take some time to clean the runways. Will there be tremendous delays? You know, that's a good question. But yeah, I would probably expect delays no matter how great they are at cleaning that. You're flying in when the snow is going to be falling the heaviest, right towards the end of the heaviest snow. So the biggest burst of snow is going to be from 10 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Carrie. So yeah, I would think there might be a few delays trying to get in here. What's the hazard of afternoon travel for schools? Lachelle, I hope I pronounced your name right, Lachelle Carter. You know, the good thing about buses is they're heavier, and so they're going to dig into that snow and try to dig down to the road. Plus, heavier bus means the tires are going to be a little bit warmer too, which will help melt the snow. You know, I think that's probably something that the schools are going to look at. I mean, the issue tomorrow, if you're going to try to let school out early, how are you going to do that? You're going to go a half a day in the morning and then let them out around noon, 1 or 2? I'm not sure. But the hazard for the afternoon travel for schools is that's when it's going to be highest. Let's put it that way, because that's when the 2 to 3 inches is going to accumulate. Okay, again, the road's mainly wet to a little bit slushy. So I think, in my experience, again, with an afternoon snow, the sun angle is going to be at its highest. Even though it's going to be cloudy, some rays will make it through down to the asphalt and will warm it up. So there is always that variable. So I wouldn't be surprised if a few schools do let out early. But overall, I wouldn't think so. What about, Michelle Evans wants to know, what about Tuesday morning around 5 a.m.? Yeah, Michelle, that's kind of what I'm worried about, because anything that's wet's going to freeze. Okay, I found black ice this morning, as I mentioned, but it was mainly in parking lots. But, you know, that's where the water pooled up from yesterday's rain. I think anything that is wet has a good chance of freezing. And so if there are some slushy areas or some snow-packed areas, they will definitely be crunchy ice, if you will, because they'll freeze. And anything that's a liquid, you know, if it's untreated, that's going to turn into black ice. So, you know, what I would do first thing is, you know, we're on at 4:30 in the morning Tuesday. Okay, it's going to be Luke's, our chief meteorologist, Luke Doris's second day on the morning show. And, you know, Taylor is going to be there. Taylor Johnson, our traffic anchor, is going to be there. You know, just flip us on at 4:30 in the morning or 5, and they'll let you know exactly how the roads are and if we're seeing any of those conditions and seeing if they did develop. Michelle, that would be my best advice. Oh, what a joy. You're right, Teresa. I'm kind of excited for the first snow, but, you know, I'll be driving into work around 9 o'clock, so I'll be driving in when it's really starting to pick up. So, yeah, fun to play in. It will be. It will not be snowman making snow. It'll be too dry. It will not be snowball making snow. But, you know, it's going to be dry. And if it comes down to the rate, you may be able to use a leaf blower to clean your driveway. Do I see possibilities of school cancellations in the North Casey area? Melissa, that's a good question. My experiences is with the snow in the middle of the day like this, no. If it was going to snow 2 to 3 inches by the time, you know, during the morning commute or right before the morning commute, I could see them canceling it. But because this is going to be a late morning, early afternoon snow, I'm not saying there won't be, but the probabilities are not as high that school will be canceled. If we get any rain or snow, the ground is cold enough now to freeze on contact. This falls on the road crews to stay ahead of it, keep the roads clean. You're right. The good news, Todd, is everything's going to fall snow. There's no freezing rain. There's no sleet. Temperature all the way through the column from where we are on the surface of the earth all the way up, you know, 8,000 feet where it's saturated. That is all below freezing. So you're going to have different types of snow. You may have needles, you may have, you know, dendrites, you may have all different types of snow, but it will definitely be frozen. It will be definitely frozen. Now, is Lee's Summit getting 3 to 4? I think you're more on the 2.5 inch line. Maybe the northern part of the Lee Summit, as you get closer up to I-70, yeah, you could get around 3. But the farther south you are, around 470, 435, 470, that's how, how we're splitting hairs right there. You could have 2 inches in the southern part of Lee Summit. You could have 3 inches in the northern part of Lee Summit. Just remember, the farther north you go, especially from about Highway 50 northward to Highway 36, that's where the heaviest of the snow is going to fall. Gabby, I wish I could tell you about school closings. We kind of talked about that just a little bit. 435 and I-35, yeah, Emily, you should be okay. I don't think you need to worry about ice as you're traveling from Leawood to Gardner. I think you're going to be all right. I know, I'm with you. It is scary. Black ice is so scary. But I think you're going to be fine. I think the interstates, as you know, are going to be the most maintained. Now, I do know that MoDOT, this is something I learned from a conference Luke and I attended, and of course we shared the information with the rest of the weather team. MoDOT tries to hit the same spot every 4 hours. Okay, so there's at minimum a 4-hour window where MoDOT is not going to touch your road again. Okay, now if there's a lot of traffic, that window is going to expand, which there's going to be. It's in the middle of the day. Okay, if it was at night and there's no one out there, they could just keep going and going and going and going and wouldn't have to worry about traffic. But because there's going to be traffic, this is in the middle of the day, they're probably not going to be able to hit spots every 4 hours. But that is their goal. It'll probably be more like 6 or 7. Okay, but they're out there right now, I know, getting everything ready. Getting everything ready as far as putting out that salty brine. So the first stuff it hits, will melt. What about the Independence area? Andrew Powell, Independence area, you are right around that 3-inch snowfall. I mean, really. And it could go either way. It could go 3 to 4 because you're getting close to the river, and we're using the river and I-70 kind of as the delineation around the 2 to 3 mark. And north of the river, we're kind of looking at some isolated spots that could be 4. So anywhere from 2 to 4 in Independence, but I'm kind of bullseyeing about a 3 the way it's looking right now. What about Olathe and Lenexa? That's a good question. Probably 2, 2.5 maybe. Remember, the farther south you go, the amounts are going to drop off. And that's kind of why I left this screen up here so you guys could kind of take a look and maybe see exactly where your neighborhood is. All right, what time frame are we looking to start? All right, Curtis Keys. Curtis, let me show you a different graphic here. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you tuning in, all of you tuning in, no matter what time you got here. So here's our first snow timeline, all right? 5 to 9 a.m., light snow in the metro, dusting to a 1/2 inch. Not really that impactful. Slippery spots? Sure, there'll be some wet spots and some slippery spots are possible. Snowbound spots, icy spots, minimal at most. 10 to 4, that's when the light snow ramps up to moderate snow. That's when we're going to get the bulk of our accumulation. 2 to 3 inches then, and then from about 4 to 7, there's a possibility of another 1/2 inch to 1 inch. Probably more likely a 1/2 inch because I'm going 2 to 4 around the metro. So if we get a 1/2 inch first time period up to 3, and then another 1/2 inch in the third time period, that would be about 4. So there you go, Curtis. That's kind of what we're thinking. Remember, this is spreading from west to east. So that 5 to 9, or the earlier 5 is going to be the farther west you are. The 9 is going to be more likely, over towards Odessa, and Warrensburg, and Sedalia, in that area when the snow will finally reach you. Okay, so there's a look at the timeline. Nick, did you not do your homework? Nick wants Blue Valley canceled. Nick, go ahead and do your homework, buddy. Do you have homework over a long holiday weekend? I had a teacher that did that a couple of times. Yeah, but now they have apps that tell you good teachers and give your opinion on teachers. I can't believe that was crazy when my kids were telling me about that. All right, so it looks like, are these numbers total snowfall or expected accumulation? Now, that's a great question, Austin. A lot of times there's a difference between the amount of snow that falls and the actual height of the snow, because you don't wait till the end of a snow the Weather Service to measure it. They measure it on a timeline, and then they wipe their snowboard clean, and then they measure it again on a timeline, and they wipe it clean, and they measure it, so to give you an accurate count of how much snow fell. Okay, so they do it a little different than you and I just waiting till the end of the snow and going out there and sticking our ruler in it. It's a little bit different. So there's snowfall, and then there's positive snow gain. So there's a difference between the amount of snow that falls and the positive snow gain as far as the depth of the snow. Positive snow depth gain. Okay, that's the actual term. So there's the amount of snow that falls, and then there's the positive snow depth gain. And with this being a fluffy snow, there's not going to be any compaction. So the 2 to 4 inches are going to be 2 to 4 inches. It's such a light, airy snow that, yeah, it will not compact itself on its own weight. So there's that. So we talked about, does Des Moines get hammered? No, actually, no. This is a completely different system, Brandon, than the one we just dealt with yesterday. Yesterday was a full-blown mid-latitude cyclone that tapped into Gulf moisture. This is what we call a short wave or a clipper system that came from the Pacific Northwest, gathered some moisture there, came over the mountains, lost a lot of its moisture, and whatever it's carrying out of the mountains is what it's going to bring to us in the form of snow. So these clipper systems, and these systems that come in, or short waves for the, the weather enthusiasts out there, that come through, they don't tap into the Gulf moisture. So they do not produce a lot of snow, and the snow they produce is in a much smaller area. It covers a lot less real estate. We're looking at, the northern 2/3 of Kansas and Missouri getting snow. There'll be some snow that gets up to Des Moines, but the amounts will taper down to 1 inch or 2. Southern Iowa could get 3 inches, maybe 4, but by the time we get to Des Moines, it's going to taper so quickly, you're down to 1 to 2. Same thing, once you get south of the metro, it's going to taper quickly to 1 inch to less than 1 inch. That's how narrow these bands are, and that's the window that we're playing with, which makes this so much fun. It really is fun. I enjoy doing this. All right, Brandon, good luck to you on your travel to Des Moines, or the person that's going to mine. I would venture to guess we might see something around 9 or 10. It's going to hit us first. Yeah. So, if you're over in Lawrence, 5 a.m. Just going down interstate. If you're Lenexa, 6 a.m. You're in the city, 7 a.m. You're over in Independence, Lee Summit by 8 a.m. at least, probably 7 to 8, because by 9 a.m. it's going to be out over near Odessa. So 5 a.m. Lawrence, 6 a.m. right up to Kansas City, 7 a.m. through Kansas City, 8 a.m. over towards at least, Odessa, and then 9 a.m. the entire viewing area should have snow. Does that kind of break it down a little bit better for you? Just kind of took a trip down I-70 there for you. So, all right, what I am going to do is appreciate all the questions. I'm trying to see if we're seeing any new questions here. What's the timing for snow, Lawrence? Just told there you go, Lawrence. It starts at 5, but your snow will be over probably around 4. Okay, here's the way to look at it. We've got a 12-hour window. So if your window in Lawrence starts at 5 a.m., your window's likely ends at 5 p.m. If your window in East Kansas, more towards Kansas City, starts at 6, you're going to end at 6. If your window starts at 7 or 8, like it will over in central Missouri, then you're going to have snow until 7 or 8 in the evening. So just think of it as a 10-hour window that's going to be moving across from west to east our neighborhoods. So that's the best way I would say to make this timing. More Martin City area, about 2.5, I think, for you. Give or take a little bit. You're right on that dividing line. Iffy about evening activities. I would be. I definitely would be concerned that if evening activities are going to be canceled. I'm not greatly concerned because again, this snow is falling during the day, which means the roads are going to be better than if this was falling at night. So Patty, it's going to be up to whoever is putting the activity on, to be honest with you. So make sure you circle back to them and kind of find out what their protocol is and what they're looking for to close their activities or postpone them. And then that'll give you a good idea after what we've talked here about what to expect. All right, we got people answering other people's questions in here. I like that. People that are listening and been watching, they're answering other people's questions for me. You guys are awesome. I appreciate that. So, oh, Megan, chance of no school. I would prepare for school. Because the snow is coming after the morning commute, I think they're going to try to get the day in and hope that the snow is not too impactful for the buses to get around in the afternoon. That's my thinking. And I don't think it will be, because again, the snow is falling during the day, which will help lower the ability of the snow to accumulate on roads, especially dark roads, asphalt roads, and treated roads, okay? So everybody do your homework, everybody prepare to go to work. And while you're at work, you know, stare out the window and enjoy our first snow of the season, or keep watching us and we'll walk you all the way through this first event, okay? So I appreciate you stopping by. New data at 6 o'clock, so new data is about to come in. So let me let you go for now. Again, thanks for stopping by. I'm gonna go get some new data and I'll come back here in about 2 hours. How about we come back here around 8:15, all right? And we do this once again with the new data. Sound good? All right, let's do that. All right, until then, have a good evening, and I'll see you in a couple hours.